sunshine. I realize I am in sunshine. The skies are turning blue. Would you like to go to the top of...
Well, it's really great to be here today for another episode of Accept Truth with Joy. And I'm really pleased to be in the office of Ben Abbott. And we're going to be talking to him today a little bit more about a lot of really important subjects, I think, that are going to be really interesting. So I'm really excited to be here. And so, Ben, thank you for letting me come.
Thank you, Heath, for coming. This really is a pleasure.
I've wanted to meet you in person for a long time.
Likewise.
And we finally got to do this, so this was great.
It only took an email that you sent 12 years ago, before email was a thing.
That's all right. You've been busy. It's all good. So what I want to do is, first, I want to get to know a little bit more about you, and also so that people who watch this can maybe get to know you a little bit better. So could you introduce yourself, kind of like, where did you grow up? What was your growing up like?
Yeah. I was born in Nashville, Tennessee, back east. But when I was little, 3 years old, my family moved out here to Utah Valley. My dad got a job here at BYU, actually, in the Germanic Studies department. And so the whole family moved over. I've got 5 brothers and 1 sister.
Oh, okay.
So it was a whole ordeal.
Where do you fit?
I'm the 5th.
Okay.
Which is, I think, like the well-adjusted and smart one, right? Hopefully all my siblings are watching this. So I'm 5th. The sister is 2nd. So it goes boy, girl, and then I got stuck. Boy. And they kind of live all over now. Some of them still here in the Utah area, some in New York, and one in China.
Oh, wow.
But we're all still very close. And I, from the time I was a little kid, really loved nature. Like bugs and reptiles and birds, anything I could find in the outdoors. And that led me to a love of TV. I loved the nature TV shows, like
Discovery.
And we only had peasant vision, so we didn't have cable. But the what do we have? National Geographic, Nature, and it seems like there were a couple other ones too. But I learned how to program the VCR. This is the first programming I ever did. Program the VCR so that it could record. Nova was another one. Could record Nova when we were gone on vacation. Like, how nerdy is that? But
So what age is this?
That was starting from probably 5 or 6 years old.
Oh, wow, okay.
That I really just was interested in the natural world. Not in a scientific way, just in a want to learn about it way and feel a connection. And did a lot of just hanging out with friends and adventuring in our neighborhood as a kid. Until, as a high school student, I started to feel a lot of anxiety about, like, what am I going to do with my life? I don't have any skills, don't have any real direction about what I want to do. And one of the days, I went to Orem High School. For those of you familiar with the area, some people call it Borum, but I think it's a pretty cool place. UVU's there, among other things. I was literally walking down the hallway of Orem High and slipped on a flyer. That's back when, like, scholarships and programs would be advertised with physical things. Slipped on this flyer, and it was for a natural resources scholarship at Utah State University. Okay. And I applied for that and got it. And my family didn't have the resources to support all of the kids through college, and so that was another source of anxiety. How am I going to pay for this? And that thankfully solved the problem for me, provided support for tuition and housing to go get started at Utah State. That's how I got into it was a watershed and earth system science program.
But as a high schooler, you were interested in science? Like, that was maybe one of your favorite courses or subjects?
Yeah. I mean, I was horrible at chemistry. I made it through biology somehow. I loved this stuff. I just was really undisciplined and didn't really apply myself or focus on the stuff. The writing courses were actually my favorite. English and reading and writing, I always looked forward to those courses. So yeah, I did. I took some classes. I took, like, the AP Calculus. That was the most complex course that I took. But I didn't get what was taught in the class, and I didn't take the AP test. So it was only as, like, a senior, as a watershed science senior, because I had to take Calc 1 and 2, that I finally took those courses and really started to get it. But
okay, so then you
definitely I was not a promising student from the
Right,
beginning in this
okay.
area. I had a lot of interest, and passion for it.
And how
enjoyment.
about your experience in the church growing up? Was it pretty typical church experience too, or
Yeah.
were there some nuance there that was happening?
Yeah,
or?
there was definitely some nuance. I mean, we grew up here in Happy Valley,
Mhm.
which at the time was well over 80% members of the church. So everybody, there was like one house in the neighborhood, in our
Mhm.
ward, that wasn't a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Everybody else was. So it was pretty typical in that way. But my parents had kind of different beliefs, and actually when I was a teenager they got divorced and my father left the church, so that created some unique experiences, but I had some amazing youth leaders and friends in the church with different kinds of relationship. I always appreciated that there was a lot of honesty and frankness among people. Like it wasn't when my parents got divorced and my dad left the church, it wasn't the end of my life, because I realized, hey, this happens to a lot of people, including I love and am very close with both my mother and my father still. I love and really support them. So I felt that there was a lot of aid from on high, as far as help through the Spirit, and then through people around us who really were inspired to care for our family. That was back when we had home teachers, and we had wonderful home
So how
and
old were
visiting
you in
teachers.
that
I was
split?
13 when the
13,
split took
okay.
place. Yeah. And I generally believed. I mean, we were active and went to church. I feel like it wasn't until I left to live on my own as a college student that I really gained my own independent testimony, and that was that. As I was trying to make this decision whether to go on a mission or not, is when, for me, I realized, hey, I can't just generally believe this or not. I've got to have something more solid to make a commitment like that. That was the first time that I really engaged with the scriptures. And early life can be so disorienting, like friends and activities and all this stuff going on. And for me, actually 2 years that I was at Utah State, I camped out. I didn't have an apartment building. And that was really helpful because it was a lot quieter. Like there was quiet time. And
So you were camping during your first years of college?
not the first year. The first year they make all freshmen at Utah State live in the dorms.
Okay.
So I got there, it was all lined up.
All right, okay.
It was the second year that was the problem, because I just assumed that somebody was going to arrange my housing, right? So I show up the day before classes start, and then kind of have this dumb realization of, wow, don't have anywhere to live.
That is amazing.
An awesome teenager choice to make. And thankfully I had this amazing counselor, Maureen Wagner was her name. I think that it's Maureen Hansen now. And she managed my scholarship. And I went into her office and I said, hey, Maureen, do you think it'd be okay if I use the housing portion of my scholarship to buy some camping gear? She was like, no, that's not okay. I was like, oh, well, I think I'm just going to camp out this semester. And she said, oh, well, yeah, that should be fine. And encouraged me, and I went, got a good tent and sleeping bag, and moved up the canyon.
You just up in the canyon
Green
there.
Canyon
Yeah.
there. Then when it started Logan gets cold.
Right.
It's like several degrees colder than here, and so when it started to snow a lot and that accumulated, I actually moved onto campus, but just like camping under bushes and things, and that ended up being easier. Didn't have to set up a tent every day. And
That is amazing.
but it was great. It was great for, my academic performance went up. I wasn't hanging out late with friends and getting
That's
distracted.
amazing.
Never watched TV. This was before smartphones.
Right, yeah.
But then also spiritually it was important because I can remember actually when I was up the canyon, I had this little radio, and because I was around the corner from the transmitter, it would only get AM radio, and one of them was like this Christian talk show, and I would listen to it, and I agreed with some of the stuff, and then some of the stuff I'm like, I don't agree with that at all, and so I'd go to the scriptures and like read them, and that was the beginning of my independent testimony, as well as the intellectual growth that went on during that.
And so did you decide to go on a mission then?
I did, yeah.
How many years had passed up? Couple years or?
Yeah, so I went to college a little bit early. I graduated when I was 17.
Okay.
So I did 2 years before I was 19 and eligible to go on mission. And it
So
was
you left
during
at
that
19.
time. I left at 19, I think I was 19 and a half.
Okay,
And
okay.
that also let me save up some money to pay for the mission. And
Where did you get called?
Belgium, Brussels, Netherlands mission.
Oh, awesome.
And it also kind of showed my level of ignorance at the time. I was like, oh, is that in Africa? Like, sounds really exciting to look at a map to figure out where in the heck Belgium was. Now I know. And
I think that's pretty common. People open up their call and they're like, I don't know, and they have to open up, now it's a smartphone or whatever to figure out where are they going. But, yeah. That's awesome.
And it was a scripture in John, where Christ says, if any man will know of my will, let him do my doctrine. And that, I was really wrestling with, like, have I had enough of a spiritual experience to then go out and invite people and tell them what they should do? And when I read that scripture, I realized, at least for me, depth of belief and testimony usually comes from action and experimentation, rather than just sitting there and thinking about it. Like, I need to go out and do what I currently understand as God's will and see what that produces in my life. And so I got serious about the scriptures, and then also left on my mission with that level of faith. Like, I believe that this is true. I'm going to really test it out by doing what I've been instructed to do.
Right. And I guess you probably had great experiences on your mission. Were you still on your mission, like, still getting confirmation that biology or science was what you wanted to do, or were you still unsure at that?
Yeah, it was a really growing time, as it is for many people. I really always enjoyed, even on my mission, the scientific discussions that would come out on our preparation day. We'd often go to a natural history museum or something like that, but it was still up in the air whether it was going to be science or writing or music or something else.
Okay.
It didn't narrow it down. Yeah.
Okay.
Even though I was pursuing a degree in science, but
Right.
I mean, I think that's not that uncommon now that I teach undergraduates, where it's like, okay, I'm in this field, kind of by accident, and we'll see what I'm interested in at the end. Yeah.
Okay. So come home from your mission and finish your degree at USU.
Yeah.
And then when do you make the decision, like, okay, this is now my next step? Because you go to graduate school after, right?
Yeah. So, my wife was ahead of me by several years in her studies, so she'd finished her master's degree by the time I finished my undergraduate degree, and she started a PhD program up in Alaska, and I followed her up there. She's in a totally different field.
When did you guys meet then?
We met when I was at Utah State after my mission.
After the mission.
Oh no, before my mission, and we wrote to each other actually while I was on my mission.
And then when did you get married then? Were you still a student at USU?
Yeah, I was still a student, still an undergraduate at USU. It was about a year after I got back, or I guess 2 years after I got back. And we ended up having a class together. That's how we met before my mission. But she started her degree. I followed her up there, and as an undergraduate, and did some remote work, and met a professor there named Jay Jones that taught a stream ecology course. Just took the course like usual, and he took a step that actually was really helpful for me. I wasn't the most confident student, but he approached me kind of as the class was ending and said, "Hey, if you're thinking about graduate school, when you graduate, make sure to just let me know, and then I'll let you know if I'm recruiting students at that time." And he was one of the people that I contacted and ended up doing my PhD with him. But I applied for a bunch of different programs, ranging from writing to engineering to science, and actually got another piece of criticism from a professor at Utah State. Said, "Hey, you got to figure out what you're going to do. Like, usually I write letters of recommendation all in one area, and here you're asking me to write these letters for a writing program? Like, what in the heck?" It was USU, so we used stronger language than that. But thankfully, everybody was pretty supportive, and it was during my PhD that I fell in love with the scientific process. I'd been interested in the facts, the products of science, long before that, but understanding how it worked and how experiments were designed and how results were interpreted, that was transformative for me. And And there was a real resonance with what I had learned from my spiritual exploration and study of the scriptures, where I realized it's not enough for me to just sit here behind my desk and think, what is likely, what is true? You have to go out, collect observations. It's really difficult, right? It takes a huge expenditure of energy and time. And then you have to constantly be exercising this intellectual humility, saying, am I seeing clearly? Or am I seeking out the evidence that's just going to confirm what I want to believe?
And you did postdoc after that?
Yeah, I worked for the French National Science Foundation. So my PhD was in ecosystem ecology. I was studying the impact of degrading permafrost caused by climate change. And then got hired by the French National Science Foundation for a 3-year postdoc in Western France. And so worked there on water pollution, water quality issues, and had a wonderful experience. By that time, my wife and I had 3 children.
So is she also doing professional?
So she finished her degree ahead of me in Alaska. And then she decided that she wanted to focus on being a full-time parent for a number of years at that time. And so when I was finishing my PhD, we counseled together and decided that we again applied for quite a few different positions. We got this offer from France. We felt like it was a good opportunity for our family as well. So we went both for scientific, but also personal and cultural reasons.
And you had 3 kids at that time.
Yeah.
How many kids do you have total?
4 kids now.
4.
Yeah.
Okay. And has your wife gotten back into science as well?
She did her PhD in material culture, history, folklore. So a different field. And she does still practice. And now she works in an art gallery with some of those skills.
Oh, amazing. Cool. So postdocs 3 years, and then is that when you apply for a job and you get a job here?
Yeah, I came straight here to BYU after that. A friend sent me the job announcement, applied for it, and ended up here. Got an offer, and I hadn't gone to BYU as an undergraduate or a graduate student, but the interview process is 2 ways, and I was really impressed when I came to visit by the students, and what I felt was a real institutional commitment to serving undergraduate students, helping them get involved in research and have the experiences they need to progress.
Okay, and you've been here 5 years.
Yeah.
Just turned in your
this is my 6th year. Yeah, so I arrived at the end of 2017.
Well, good. I have no doubt you'll be just fine, probably, moving forward.
We'll see.
Well, good. So I also wanted to ask you, is there anything else about your family you want to say?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like you've got now your oldest is, you told me
14. Yeah. So they range from 4 to 14, 10-year range. 2 boys, 2 girls. That's how genetics work. Right.
Right.
Confirm this for me.
I could have predicted that, but I would probably be wrong with such a small sample size. But in your case, you'd be exactly right.
And they've got really diverse interests. Also, actually, maybe you can see.
Yeah,
this is some of the artwork that my daughter and oldest son created, Ingrid and Henry, and it's so wonderful. I'm just so grateful for my family, and you alluded to it. This last year has been just a total whirlwind for me. And having friends and family to counsel with and just debrief on and complain to has been such an important thing. And I don't know why I'm interjecting this, but just so many people have done this for me and reached out in an unsolicited way. But if there's anybody watching this or listening to this who feels like they don't have that and needs to talk to somebody, I hope that they reach out, and that even could be to me, right? I'm just a weird stranger, but we care about each other. We care about you. Speaking to whoever's watching this, and you don't have to go through it alone.
Yeah. Well, that's a good message, and thank you for saying that.